To introduce our guest speaker. You know, I don't do this often for a Wednesday meeting. In fact, practically never. And I want you to know, I learned my lesson my first year in this position when I let somebody come in and speak to the office without interviewing them first. I don't do that anymore. So when this wonderful gentleman, who by the way is an international business and sales expert in business and sales principles, a proven entrepreneur, which I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit about where that comes from, but he sold a business. On his website there's this awesome bio, right? And he's a sales trainer. And one of the best things he does is when he teaches people, he helps most people increase their referral business by an average of 50% or more within the first 90 days of implementing some of his principles. And one of the reasons I'm bringing him in is he did agree to meet with me, even with his fabulous background and all of this experience, and talk to me personally first before I agreed to let him speak to all of you, and was quite humble and wonderful about it. Wow. Thank you very much. And so after meeting him, I almost felt silly because he was really fantastic. And so I am giving him the rest of our meeting, and we are not covering our standard topics today, and I hope you will enjoy him as much as I did and gather. As I say, if you gather one nugget that helps you in your life or your business, it's worth the time and the investment, right? So, John Pyron, how to increase your productivity?
Fantastic, thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
Do you need anything else from us?
I'm good.
All right.
I'm good. You know, what's interesting is when I came here to meet with her to talk about speaking, I walked in the building, I'm like, wait, I've been in this building before. And what's interesting is 6 years ago, this week, I decided to sell the business that I had in this building. I was in the suite upstairs, very last office. That's where I had my business. What's interesting is 9 months prior to that, my business partner walks in, September 20th, 2011. We were running a little over $1.2 million a year in revenue. And he says, I quit. I'm out of here, right? I go, wait, you own part of the company, man. What are you doing? He's like, I don't care. I don't like you. I don't like your dog. Wow. I don't like your cat. No, he didn't say all that, but he was a little upset, right? And I had about 12 employees at the time, didn't know who was dedicated to me. I ultimately had to fire every single one of them and lost about 45% of my business in about 90 days. Now, when you wake up every morning and you're losing money and you don't know how much you're going to lose that day, do you think you get a little discouraged?
Yes.
Yeah. Needless to say, about 4 or 5 months into it, I remember just as if it was yesterday, just wanting to pull the covers over my head and just wish it would all go away. And so if you've ever been through any challenge, any frustration, any obstacle, then I can relate to you. If you haven't been through a big storm like that, then I will tell you this: you're probably not doing enough. Is that a fair statement? Okay. And so before I get started, let me ask you a question. Who in here has heard me speak before? Okay. Who has not? Rachel, make a note of all these people because they're potential clients. Who's not going to raise their hand no matter what I say? Right? Fantastic. All right. So whenever I speak, especially when there's people that haven't heard me speak, there's always basically about 3 questions that are going through someone's mind. And number 1 is, who is this dude? Number 2, why do I care to listen to him? Because our time is valuable, right? And then number 3, and most important, what's in it for me? Are those fair questions, right? Because I do a lot of seminars myself, and every time there's a speaker up there, I'm sitting there going, okay, dude, you got about 3 minutes to impress the crap out of me, otherwise I'm on my phone and I'm texting. And so let me see if I can share with you a little bit about my background and answer those 3 questions. So April of 1987, on 40th Avenue and East 14th Street in the safe town of East Oakland, okay, I had convinced this lady to allow me, at 17 and a half years old, to allow my stepdad to park a trailer about the size of these 2 tables together in her backyard because I was leaving my family at 17. Actually, they were leaving me. I decided to stay back. So I chose to be homeless in East Oakland, California. I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. I was heavy into drugs. Not only taking drugs, dealing drugs, that sort of thing, but literally had no direction in life, where I was going to go at all. My mom was a waitress, my dad was a tow truck driver, and no one in our entire family tree on either side of the family had ever graduated from high school. And at the time, I'm thinking, this is it. This is my life. I'm going to always struggle. I'm going to always work in the trades. I'm always going to scrap and scrape and so forth. Now, if we fast forward September 24th, 2010, what's funny is I was in that office up there during that time, and the Sacramento Business Journal released their, what they called back then, their top 100 fastest growing companies list. What was interesting about that year, now how many of you realize the economy was kind of bad during that time? So it had gotten so bad that this particular issue, they could only find 75 companies for the entire list. It was that bad. And we were number 26 on that list prior to the year. Prior to that, we were number 10. And the reason I'm telling you this is this. We were the center page article for the entire book of lists that year. Now, good for me, big deal. What does that have to do with you? Here's what it has to do with you. April 1987, I'm homeless. Here we are many years later. That was my third company to build from nothing to well over $1 million a year in revenue. Now, why do I say that? Because it doesn't matter where any of you have come from, what you're going through right now, whether you've been through a bankruptcy, a divorce, whatever challenge you've had in life up to this point, I am here to tell you, you know what, has absolutely zero bearing on where you are going to go. How many of you realize that some people did not wake up this morning? How many of you realize that, right? Now, you happen to be awake, and so that means you're vertical. Now, I was homeless, right? Can you actually get much lower than homeless?
Dead.
Exactly. So as long as you're vertical, you can change your life. Now, what does this have to do? Why should you listen to me? Because I'm going to share with you 3 of my most favorite strategies that I've used to build business after business after business. And I've trained thousands of people, both in sales, in real estate, in pretty much any business that you can imagine. And those that embrace this and actually do the work see an unbelievable increase in their referrals, their profitability, their income. And so it's interesting, this week in 2012, after rebuilding that company, I was like, done. And I'm sitting at a cigar shop with my buddy Richard, and we're smoking a cigar, and he goes, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. And he says, well, you're making all this money. I go, I don't care. My heart is no longer into what I am doing. How many of you understand if your heart's not into it, it's probably not going to work? So one of the reasons that you should listen to me is I'm going to give you some step-by-step today on how you can take it and apply it to your real estate business. And if you actually take the action, I promise you this. I promise you will see an increase in your production. A lot of you are going to make Masters Club that haven't made it before. A lot of you are going to absolutely crush it in real estate. Not because of me, but because of what you've learned and taken action on. And then I'm going to give you a ton of resources that have nothing to do with me. And you go and take action and you're going to crush it. Now, what's in it for you? What's in it for you is this. I'm going to share with you 3 principles. I created a note sheet for you to take notes on. I'm going to actually create a Dropbox folder, and I'm going to drop a crap ton of content in there that I would normally sell, and I'm just going to give it to you for free. And then I'm just going to encourage you to go out and take action. So that's what's in it for you. So here we are 20 minutes from now. If I accomplish all of that stuff, is it worth your time?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I need from you is very simple. I need you to play full out in the next 20 minutes. No texting, cell phone can go to voicemail. Guess what I learned a long time ago? 911 will get there a whole lot quicker than you. That's a huge time management tip. Huge. Because how many of us constantly get distracted throughout the day? How many of you, I remember coaching this one realtor, and he goes, but you don't understand. I got to answer we're in a meeting. The guy's paying me thousands of dollars to coach with me, and he answers his freaking phone. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, well, this is a prospect that I've been waiting for me to call. And I go, well, let me ask you a question. If you were in a listing appointment with someone else, would you take that call? Well, of course not. And I go, well, guess what? I'm a listing. Now, there's a message behind that. Because if you don't value your time, guess what? Nobody else is going to. And so you got to make your time a priority. And one of the things that you do is you eliminate the distractions. Okay? So before we get started, let me share with you a really quick story. Because we're right by Ruth's Chris. So here's a guy named Fred. He goes into a fine dining restaurant like Ruth's Chris, and him and his wife are sitting down, they're having dinner, and he's like, man, I got to go to the restroom. So he goes to the restroom, and he walks into the restroom, and he sees this guy, Bill, and Bill's like, he's puzzled. He's like, he's frustrated. He's standing in front of the urinal because, see, Bill has managed to drop a $5 bill inside the urinal. And he sees Fred that is looking at him, and he looks back at the urinal, he looks back at Fred, he reaches in his pocket, he pulls out a $50 bill, and he tosses it inside the urinal. Now Fred's across the room, and he's like, what the hell did you do that for? And Bill, with a smirk on his face, he goes, well, come on, man. You don't expect me to put my hand in there for $5, do you? So, little corny story, but it makes a point. And that is this. When the desire, when the reward is big enough, right? We'll do stuff that we won't normally do. Now, that's a gross story, but it makes a point, and that is a lot of you aren't as productive as you should be and allowing too many distractions because you're where you're going and what you're after in your real estate business is not in focus. And what I find in talking to lots and lots of people, they make all kinds of excuses. Well, John, I could have done that, but I had to file the paperwork. John, I could have done that, but you don't understand. I got to get my CRM in place. I would achieve that goal, but what, right? And one of the things I learned a long time ago is excuses are like armpits. They stink if you don't take care of them. Am I right or am I wrong? Right? And so another one I learned, which literally changed my life, is if you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Okay? So ask yourself, how much arguing have you been doing lately? Now here's the cool thing. Today is the first day of the rest of your life, like we talked about when I first started. So I'm going to share with you 3 ways to increase your productivity. Now when I decided on, productivity, there was a survey that we sent out to everybody. And the top 2 things that came back was time and priority management. And number 2 was, how do I increase my production? I'm like, take the 2, we combine them together. We're talking about how to increase productivity is really what we're talking about. So I'm going to share with you 3 ways. Number 1, and this is where you can start taking notes, is we're going to talk about the inner game, the mindset, inner game around productivity. Number 2 is we're going to talk about the outer game, and this has to do with our systems. And then finally, number 3, you can have the best mindset you want. That's some good-looking cake there. You can have the best systems in place, but how many of you understand if you can't get your butt to take action, which is number 3, none of this matters, right? And so let's talk about the inner game. The inner game has to do with mindset. And one of the mindsets of a champion is that there's always room to grow. How many of you would agree with that statement? Let me ask you a question. Be honest with yourself. How many of you believe that you have potential inside of you right now to perform at a higher level than the level you've been performing at? Fantastic. So, me too. Now, check this out. We got to have something that we can do practically, because I'm one of those guys, like, I got to make it simple for me. If I can't make it simple, then it won't be consistent. And so here I am in June of 2013. I'm interviewing a guy named Ben Gay III. Now, I know. I had the exact same thought when I go, hey, John, you're going to interview Ben Gay III on your podcast. I'm like, that's going to be cool. Okay, we're not going to be in the same room, are we? No, I didn't say that. But so come to find out, Ben Gay III was personal best friends with Napoleon Hill. So the guy is pretty old. He's up in Placerville. Okay, you can look him up on Facebook. Now, it's like, get him on the line. We're right before the call, and I'm like, come on, man. I've read the book Think and Grow Rich. That's probably one of the best books about mindset on the planet. And I'm a human being just like everybody else. What's the one thing that was missing? Come on, tell me what the one thing. I know he left something out, right? That he charged thousands of dollars to share with somebody. What was that one thing? It's like me sitting at the foot of my grandfather, right? It's like, please tell me the secret, right? And he goes, here it is. It's the ability to give yourself a clean slate every day. And I go, that's it? That's all you've got? I've been to lots of seminars. I've spoken in front of thousands of people, and this is the best you got. And he said, yes. And I go, okay, I've heard, okay, forget the past, speak positive, expect great things, all this stuff, all this cliche stuff. Give me some meat, man. Give me some how-to. How can I actually implement this? And he said, well, here's what you do. Number one, and this is in your notes here, right? So number one is you want to decide what it is that you're going to measure. So you're going to write down your number. It needs to be measurable. And so let's talk about money. Who in here likes money? Okay. Who in here wants more of it? Okay. Those of you that didn't raise your hand, I will set up a GoFundMe account, and you are more than welcome to donate to that. So anyways, so what you need to do is, here we are, May 23rd. Decide December 31st, 2018, what that number needs to be. Subtract where you are right now, and you're going to find out what that number is. Then you're going to look at your calendar and decide, okay, how many days do you want to work between now and that day? And you're going to come up with a number. You're going to take the dollar amount that you need to get done before then. You're going to divide it by the number of days that you have left in this year, and you're going to come up with a daily number. So that's number one. Once you find out what your number is, then here's the daily practice. Every single morning that you get up, I want you to whip out a blank sheet of paper. And at the top of the sheet of paper, I want you to write the date. Then what I want you to do is I want you to write the number that you need to accomplish today. And then next step is you're going to look at your calendar, you're going to look at your task list, all the stuff that you have planned for today, and anything on that list that is not going to support you hitting that number today, you're going to reschedule it, delete it, delegate it, care what you do with it. Then you're going to ask yourself this question, because you don't need another seminar. Trust me, you don't need another seminar, you don't need another speaker, you don't need another audio, another book. You know exactly what to go do. You really do. So you're going to ask yourself this question. What can I do today to move myself one step closer to that goal, number one? Number two is, what all can I do today to hit that number? And what's interesting is when we ask our brains that type of question, we get the answer. I can tell you hands down, the number one topic I get requested to speak on, coach on, mentor on, is how do you generate leads in real estate? Right? How many of you that's like your number one challenge? Right? And one of the things I discovered after working with thousands of realtors is I still to this day cannot time a listing. Just can't time it. Can't time a buyer, can't time a listing. What can I do? I can meet a brand new person every single day, make sure they got a pulse, right? get their phone number, their email address, and I can start nurturing that relationship. That's what I can do. And far too many people in our industry don't do that. That one simple thing. And so part of hitting that daily number for yourself, if you don't have anything in the pipeline, do everything you can to produce that number, because what's going to happen, here's what Ben Gay taught me, is your brain is going to start getting programmed towards that number. And what's interesting is every single milestone he set, when he wanted to make 500 grand, when he wanted to make $1 million, when he wanted to make 10 million a year, it was that one thing right there. It started programming his mind to accept that as a goal. God, universe, family members, everybody started rallying around this number. And all of a sudden, here he is waking up one day and it's like, I hit the goal, oh my God. Now, I'll give you an example of a live story. Client of mine, we'll call him Joe. Now, his name is not Joe, but for the sake of anonymity, we're going to call him Joe. He's in the Bay Area. 7 days ago, 7 business days ago, comes to me and says, hey, I'm not going to hit the number this month. And I go, really? He goes, yeah. I go, how much do you need to hit that number? And he told me. I said, good. You're going to work every day except Memorial Day and get rid of the weekends, because he's a B2B type business. He said, yep. I go, great. We're going to divide that by that number, and that's how much you got to hit every day. And it came up to be $1,345 a day. And I said, Joe, why can't we, let's just go for $1,500. What do you think, man? And he said, yes. And I go, great. So here's what we're going to do. And I gave him exactly step by step what's on your list there. And here's what happened. The first day he hit $3,274. The next day he hit $7,240. Then he dropped down to $585. Then he went to $1,250. Then he went to $1,250. Then he went back up to $2,600. And then I don't have the numbers up to date yet, but he has already surpassed the goal for the rest of the month. He says, dude, I already did it. And I go, great, man, you still got all these days left. Keep going. Because at the end of the day, he's going to find out what he's made of. Now he has a staff of employees, but the cool thing that has happened in the entire culture of his company, he's got 16 employees, is the whole company's around this exercise. And they're fired up. They even went out and got badges. They ordered up t-shirts. I kid you not, he told me they ordered a t-shirt. And they're rallied around this. You want to get fired up about your future? Do this clean slate exercise every single day. Now here's the number one rule. There's 2 rules. You are not allowed to carry over anything to tomorrow. So even though he knocked it out $3,274 the first day, guess what, dude? Your number's still $1,500 tomorrow, right? Even though one day he came in a little over $500, you're not allowed to add it to tomorrow. It's a clean slate every day. And as long as you do that, now, I use this strategy in my own business, every single client I teach, and I really only use it, to be quite honest, when I'm going after a big goal, when I need focus. Because you're going to play it out of a scale of 1 to 10, you're going to play it about a 9 or 10, and there's only so much time that you can do that, okay? But that is how you will ensure that your mindset is focused every single day. And guess what? All the production, all the time management issues that you have, guess what's going to happen? They're going to disappear. All of a sudden, you'll be able to get stuff done. How many of you, like 2 days before vacation, get more done in those 2 days than you get the entire month? Right? So think about it. All right, so that's the inner game. It has to do with mindset. Let's talk about the outer game now. And one of the things that I learned, what's funny is when I was preparing for this talk, I'm like, I actually learned this principle in 1992 from the #1 real estate agent in all of Placer County, a guy named Clark Broom.